Alright guys, so I wanted to make a quick encouragement video on loving God and loving people. So 2 Corinthians 12:15 says, "And I will very gladly spend and be spent for your souls, though the more abundantly I love you, the less I am loved." So Paul is talking here, and he's just saying that he's gladly being devoted to people and spending himself and toiling to be devoted to the brethren. And even if they're not doing the same for him back, he's just glad to do it because he knows that this is the greatest commandment, and he knows that this is what the Lord would want him to do. And so my encouragement is to do that. Just be extremely devoted to brethren, no matter the result, knowing that you'll be rewarded for it from the Lord. And Matthew 22:36-40 backs this up. I mean, this is where Jesus is talking about the greatest commandment and the second one as well. Matthew 22:36-40 says, "Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." So, in life, I mean, there's hundreds of commandments in the Bible. They can all be summed up in loving God and loving people. And obviously, in our lives, we're not going to be perfect. There's always going to be sin in our life, and hopefully it gets less and less the more mature a believer that you become. But the point is we're going to be tainted. But if you are focused on loving God and loving people, and that's your main goal, and you keep going and you don't quit, and you're extremely devoted to God and people, then God is going to be happy with you, and he's going to be happy with your performance, even though our performance isn't what gets us to heaven, but it will get us rewards in heaven, and it will glorify the Lord when we live for him. And a way to show God that you love him, the greatest commandment, is by loving his people. So that's the second greatest commandment. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. When you love people more specifically, his believers, God's chosen people, when you love them, you're showing God that you love him. You're being devoted to both God and the brethren. And I just want to close out here with this verse in Colossians chapter 3, verses 12-14. It says, "Therefore, as the elect of God, holy and beloved, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, longsuffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, even as Christ forgave you, so you also must do. But above all these things, put on love, which is the bond of perfection." So I just thought that this verse kind of summed up like different ways to love people. And then at the end of the verse it says, "Put on love, which is the bond of perfection." So we should be bearing with one another, as the verse says, forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against another, forgive them. Just being devoted to the brethren is so big in our lives. It's the second greatest commandment. And so I wanted to encourage everybody to really love God and love people. And if people don't let people try to stop you from loving others. An example in the scripture actually is when Jesus says to Peter that he's going to be killed and die for the sins of the world on a cross. Peter kind of tells him like, no, Lord, this isn't ever going to happen. And don't let, and so the concept is, don't let somebody convince you that your love is not supposed to go through, because maybe it has a consequence in their eyes. Maybe it's in the other person's eyes who's trying to convince you. It looks like you're getting ripped off, or it looks like you're getting taken advantage of. Don't let somebody stop you from ever loving God or loving people. And so that's my encouragement, guys. Love God, love people, and I'll be uploading here again shortly. Grace and peace.